the Great Assembly Chamber of Nexus Prime, had hosted 1,000 diplomatic gatherings over the millennia, but nothing quite like this. High Chancellor Morthak of the Centauri Federation adjusted his ceremonial robes as he gazed upon the assembled representatives of 47 star systems, each species more exotic than the last. The quarterly Galactic Council session will now commence, announced the Chamber's AI in perfect universal standard. First agenda item: territorial disputes in the Outer Rim sectors. Ambassador Kretak from the Crystalline Hegemony was mid-sentence, discussing mining rights, when the Chamber's proximity alarms began their haunting wail. Every delegate's attention snapped to the massive viewing screens that dominated the Chamber's walls. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Yelnara, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "The hyperspace inhibitor field should prevent any unscheduled arrivals." Through the transparent aluminum windows, they watched in stunned silence as space itself seemed to fold. Not the familiar blue-white flash of standard FTL drives, nor the elegant spiral patterns of quantum tunneling. This was something entirely different. Reality wrinkled like fabric, and through that wrinkle stepped a vessel that defied every known law of physics. The ship was modest by galactic standards, perhaps 2 kilometers in length, but its design spoke of technologies that shouldn't exist. Its hull appeared to be constructed from materials that shifted between states of matter, sometimes solid metal, sometimes pure energy, sometimes something in between that had no name in any known language. Broadcasting on all frequencies, announced the Chamber's communication officer, her voice tight with confusion. "Standard diplomatic protocols. But the origin signature reads as Sol System, Sector 1. A collective intake of breath echoed through the chamber. Sol System was quarantined space had been for over 3,000 years. The primitive bipeds who inhabited the third planet from their yellow star hadn't even achieved basic spaceflight when the Council had last checked. High Chancellor Morthak activated his personal communicator. "Council security. Verify that reading immediately." "Confirmed, Chancellor. The vessel's quantum signature matches archived readings from the Sol quarantine zone." "But sir, that's impossible. Our last survey indicated the inhabitants had barely discovered nuclear fusion." On the main display, text appeared in perfect universal standard, though no signal was being transmitted on any frequency the Council could detect. GREETINGSGALAC TCAU THISIS CAPTAINELENAV ASQUEZ OFTHE TEERRANE XPLORRAAAATAIAE WEREQ UEESTP ERESSIO NTOADD RAE ESSTHE ASSEEMB. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates leaped from their seats, their various forms of exclamation creating a cacophony of alien languages. The Methane Collective's representative began cycling through multiple colors of alarm, while the silicon-based constructors emanated subsonic vibrations of distress. "Order!" Morthak's voice boomed through the chamber's amplification system. "Unknown vessel, by what authority do you claim to represent Sol System? Our records indicate no spacefaring civilization exists in that sector." The response came not through their communication systems, but somehow directly into the translation matrices of every delegate present. OURRECORD USDIFFERESCANCE LOORMORRETHAK WEHAVEDEENAW AREOFTH EAEUNCILAC AKE, EILER, APR, IENT, YEA, ESOA, EOUIA, WEC, HOSETOO, BSARV, ERA, THER, THA, ANINT, ERA, UNT, ILNOW. Ambassador Zex Neal of the Trade Federation stood shakily on his 6 legs. You claim to have been observing us? Our sensor networks would have detected any technological civilization within 50 light-years of this system. NEGAT, IVE. YURSE, NSORNET, WORK, SARE. A DEQU, a TE. FORDET, ECT, ING, CIV, ILIZ, IO, EOIU, AAAO, EU, CURRREN, TT, ESHE. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a plasma burst. Dr. Yelnara's tentacles writhed with agitation as she accessed her datapad. The Sol quarantine was established because spectral analysis showed no signs of advanced technology. How could we have missed an entire spacefaring civilization? YUUOB, USERVEDWHAT, WACHOSAT, TOW, YOU, MAINT, AINING, THE, ILLUSIO, NOFAPREIND, USTRIA, ALSOCIET, YREEAQ, EEUUSIDLIT, BA, EDEAEU, EA, INTERFEREENCE. On the viewing screen, the human vessel gracefully moved into a perfect parking orbit around Nexus Prime, its impossible technologies making the maneuver look effortless. Smaller craft detached from its hull shuttles that seemed to phase in and out visible space. High Chancellor Morthok felt his authority crumbling with each passing moment. If you possess such advanced technology, why reveal yourselves now? RECENT, COUNCILDECIS, IONSREG, ARD, ING, XP, ANSIO, NINT, OUNESBC, TORL, ERUSE, EAIAEA, ET, ET, WEFEAND, OURS, ELV, EAU, ETAAEEET, IC, IPIEQ, EUAU, AEA, EG, UNFORT, UNATEEMIS, UNDERST, ANDINGS. The security director of the Warrior Caste stepped forward, his heavily armored form imposing even among the diverse assembly. You speak of protection. What systems? Our surveys show only uninhabited worlds in most unexplored sectors. INCORRECT, OURPROTE, CTORAT, EINCUDEU, SFORT, YTHREED, EEAA, EAAEBIE, EUECIV, EILLOJOIE, WEHAE, BEE, EAESH, EP, EEEEE, IAE, DEE Day, LUA, EEP, EANT, WILIA, ING. The chamber fell silent. 43 civilizations, hidden from the most advanced sensor networks in known space. The entire galactic political landscape had just shifted beneath their feet. Ambassador Kretak, eldest member of the council, spoke with the weight of centuries behind her words. "What do you propose, humans of Earth?" FORMARRECOGENIT IOE AUAESAG EAAEAAA AC EST ABLISHME ETOFPE ZTEU YE ZAEEEEGA AND IMMEDIA TECEE SSA TIONOF ALLA XETIA UEAE ESINS ET. Morthak looked around the chamber at faces and face analogues filled with shock, confusion, and growing realization. A species they had dismissed as primitive had been operating at a technological level that made them look like children playing with toys. The Council will need time to deliberate. WITHREESP ECTCANCELLORT IME ISALU XUR YWENOLONGERPUSS URDEEP SP AC EMOEAT ORINGAST ATIONSIND ICEEUTU ECOUNCILEC XE ELLLAA EOETIOAA EELIZ ATIONS UNDE ROURP ROTE IO THE YW ILARRIV EWIT INFORT YSEVENST ANDARDEHOURS. As if summoned by the conversation, alerts began flashing across the chamber's displays. Long-range communications from Council fleets, reporting impossible encounters with human vessels that had somehow intercepted them mid-journey. The galaxy, it seemed, had been operating under very different rules than the Council had imagined. "I hereby call for an emergency session," Morthak announced, his voice carrying new respect. "It appears we have much to discuss with our unexpected new colleagues." The age of Galactic Council supremacy had ended not with conflict, but with the simple truth that they had never been alone at the top of the technological hierarchy.